This episode will change the way you think about mediumship. It did for me. Whether you're simply curious or already far along in your own exploration, this conversation is worth your time. People say that Dominic Boag is consistently accurate, specific, deeply comforting, has a strong reputation for evidential mediumship, and has been described as one of the UK's youngest, most successful mediums. Welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast, conversations shaped by curiosity, creativity, and connection. I'm your host, Shannon Miles Halliday, and this show is where we explore new possibilities and embrace the wild, beautiful, ever-unfolding adventure of being human. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast. I'm very excited today to have one of the UK's favorite mediums. Dominic Boag is with us. And welcome, Dominic.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to spending some time with you.
Oh, me too. I'm just very excited about it. I sped read your book and of course, listened to a bunch of podcasts. And I had a friend introduce me to your work and the fact that you're coming to Vancouver in May. And I thought, wow, I would love to talk to Dominic because it sounds like he has just got such an interesting story and, doing some really good work in the world. And I think when people think of doing work that's of service, people think of nursing, teaching, working in climate, and I don't think that the average person would think mediumship. And yet, that's really what struck me when reading your book and everything else. You have got a career of service, and it's lovely.
Yeah, how it ended up a career, I will never quite know. But one may say it was just destiny. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's hard to believe that now this year will be my 20-year anniversary of working with the spirit world.
Wow. So maybe for people who haven't had the pleasure of reading your book yet, you could give us a quick introduction of what started you in this world, and then we can just get into a few more details around what it is actually that you do. I know I've had a couple mediums on the podcast before, but I think of my podcast really as a bridge to open people's minds to possibilities and to think, oh, I hadn't thought about that before, and see what new we could welcome in. And you never know when someone hears your story, maybe that just unlocks something that they hadn't been thinking of before.
Absolutely, that's what conversations are truly all about, isn't it? It's just opening the hearts, opening the minds, and having engaging conversations. Absolutely. How to fast track? Well, that's going to be an interesting thing. But
I've got all day. You can slow track.
I will try not to bore you all. Yes, I'm here in beautiful Scotland. I'm on the west coast of Scotland, where I was born and bred. Still living here, still at home. But I was always what I would say normal, and whether normal to you and I is the same thing. But for me, when I say normal, I had no inclination, I had no understanding of death. I had no understanding of life after death, grief, ghosts, mediums, psychics. I had no knowledge of things like this, nothing at all. I would say that I was always intuitive. And what I mean by that is always aware of things more psychically. For an example, when I was just a young boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, my mum would tell that I would sit on her legs, on her lap, and she had this almost like crystal ball type necklace on a gold chain, and it would spin. And I used to sit and spin it and say to her, oh, I can see things. I believe I can tell you things. And she never really understood it, but it freaked her out, if you want to say, with some of the things that I used to say to her. Um, so I was always very psychic. I could just tell things. Even in school, me and my best friend Siobhan, we would maybe be out walking, going to the park or going downtown, and I would turn to her and I would say, we've not seen your dad in a long time. And she's, yeah, that's right. Oh, I don't know, maybe he's working away, or maybe I don't know. She says, I've not seen him either. And we would chat, like, yeah, it's maybe been like 2 months, 3 months since we've seen your dad. Like, yeah. We would turn the corner and who would be there would be her father. You know? And then in school, like a group of us would all be on the internet. It was back in the days of MSN and Yahoo Messenger,
I know
where
it
we all
well.
chat. Yes. And we would all be arranging to meet up after school at the weekend. And, my friend Nicola would maybe say, so what time are we meeting? Are we going to meet at Louise's house first? And I just would randomly say, oh, Louise isn't coming tonight. She's got a migraine. And Nicola would go, oh, if you spoke to her, says, no, didn't you tell me that she had a migraine? No, no. Nicola would go and call Louise, and then she'd come back. She's like, yeah, Louise isn't coming. She's got a migraine. But we just ignored it. We thought maybe one of us talked, and strange things like that would constantly happen. I would talk about people that would appear, or you would bump into them, or I would say the most crazy of things like, yeah, the bus is going to be delayed because there's been an accident down at the roundabout. 30 minutes later, we're still waiting on the bus. Once we get on the bus, we then see the emergency services. There had been a crash. So things were very intuitive. But then as I went through my high school years, as I was, doing my exams and, really trying to find my way in the world, I guess, as a young teenager, my own father passed away very suddenly, very unexpectedly. And that was the first ever death that I had ever experienced, the first ever pain of grief, not only for me to feel, but to see my mom and my sister, my little brother. We tried to protect him from things because he was only 5 or 6. He
Mm,
didn't really understand.
yeah,
But to
that's
see my
hard.
family completely break and pain that you cannot fix. And I know that sounds weird, but if someone hurts their head or cuts themselves, well, you can try to soothe it or fix it by, ice or stop the bleeding. There was a feeling of being helpless, hearing your mum sob herself to sleep at night, with her husband not being there. My mum was very young. I don't even think she was 40 when my dad passed away. But the same evening that the police had came to say that my dad had been found passed away, I was upstairs again on the computer. I thought, well, I have to tell my friends why I'm not going to be in school for maybe the next week or so. So I reached out to my nearest friends, Rachel and Siobhan and Nicola. So I just typed away. And that feeling of someone watching you or staring at you just started to really creep under my skin. Like you just start getting that horrible feeling, and the hairs on my arms stood up. The whole room went so cold. And as I turned from the window and the computer screen, looking over to the door entrance of my bedroom, my father was standing there. And I still to this day could describe what he was wearing, his blue and his navy blue and his white striped t-shirt, his denim pants, his jeans. And he says to me, he says, I know this is hard at the moment, son. He says, but this is the best way. He says, and I need you to know that I will never be far. I'm always going to be there. He says, and I know you'll look after the family. He says, but I'm completely healed now. I'm fine. And the hardest thing was my father went from being a professional soccer player to being an alcoholic. So
Mm,
he went from having everything or being on a high to then losing himself, so to speak. I didn't tell anyone about that experience because I didn't really know what that experience was myself. Because as quick as he was there, he was then soon gone. And that was my first ever experience of spirit. That was my first ever experience of death, seeing a spirit, not knowing what was going on. And that's when I went from being normal Dominic to then Dominic being awakened as a medium.
yeah,
Yeah, so 14 I was, 14.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that kid that lost his dad. That is
Yeah.
just unthinkable for a teenager. Well, for anyone really. It's
Right. Yeah,
hard.
of
It's
course.
hard. And um but then things started to open up. And I love the story of how your mom then found a medium and went to visit a
Yeah.
medium, and how did your mom even find the medium? Was it sort of a small town, or are spiritualist churches on every corner? How does your mom go about finding a medium back then?
Yeah, well, I mean, mediums were known things. My mum, many years ago, even I think just when I was really young, she went to a fortune teller. So
Okay.
readers and things were very known in Scotland. But after my dad passed away, and as she started to try to piece life back together a few months later, her and I think it was my sister, they went to our local spiritualist church, which was in the town, and my dad had came through, and the medium was giving the contact to my mum from my dad, and she was able to tell my mum the street or the address in which my father was found passed away in. She was able to give my mum factual details or evidential details, as we would say. And then she turned to my mum. She says, your husband's telling me that your son can hear the voice of spirit, and I will train him. I will help him understand. And my mum must have gave her a very Glaswegian response of, "Well, I've got two sons, hen." And the medium then replied, and she says to my mum, "Well, your husband says you only have one son that's 14 years old." And then my mum went, "Okay." But my mum didn't know because I didn't tell her any of my experiences from when dad first passed away or even the things that I was going through after. So I didn't
Right.
tell her that things were happening. And the night after that, I had came in from working. I started working quite young. I worked for our local council as a youth support worker with teaching drama and performance. So I came in and my mum and a few of the neighbours were all sitting round the dining table. And I just popped my head into the kitchen. "That's me home." And I tried to close the door. She says, "Here, in here." "All right." And she says, "Have you anything to tell me?" No, I'm like, "Is the school
That's
called to
that's what
say
I
that I've
say
not
to
been
my
going to
son when he's in
class?" Or
trouble.
absolutely, well, that's what I thought. And I says, "No, no, no, I don't think so." And she says, "Heard from your dad?" And I went, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Have you seen your dad?" And I'm like, And she says, "We went to the spooky club, the spiritualist church." And I went,
You
"Oh my
called it
God,
the
where is this
spooky
going to
club?
go?" Yeah, the spooky club. It's a very
Awesome.
traditional thing in Scotland to call it the spooky club. Um, And that's when she went on to tell me that dad had came through the medium and dad had doubted me that, I've seen him and had experiences. And that's when, for the first time ever, I was able to lift that weight off my shoulders and say, "I don't know how this is possible. I don't know how this person knows things about my dad, but here is what I know. And here is what I've experienced. And here's what's been going on." Because it wasn't just that moment of things that happened with my dad. There was things just constant, constant, constant. I was like a barrage of things. It got to the stage I didn't know who was dead and who was alive. I was going through school, I was going through town, like, oh, well. So being able to share it and let it all out and have someone listen, whether my mum believed me or not at that point, that's a different story. But that's when I then decided I want to go and find this crazy woman. I want to go to this spooky club, this place where things are possible. But I wanted to just go to, I guess, figure out if I was crazy or not. And I
Right.
know that sounds a little bit crazy, but I wanted I'm very skeptical, and I know not many listeners will believe that, but I'm a very skeptical medium. I can't just take it as value. I need my evidence. I need matter of fact. So I went a few weeks later to the spiritualist church, and I always remember the building was on fire. So as you walked in, you could still smell the remnants of the smoke and the damage. As I walked our way up into what felt like the attic, and I could start to hear the chattering of voices. And as I opened the door, there was maybe about 20 or 30, 40 and 50-year plus audience members sitting in the room. And I snuck in and I went sitting right up to the very back of the room. You couldn't go any further back. And I just sat.
Just thought you'd
Let's see
blend
what this
into
is
the
all.
wall.
Well, I tried, let's see what this is all about. So again, 14-year-old, 40, 50, and 60-year-olds, yeah, wasn't very clever then, was I? Um, so as the medium came on, little did I know this was the same medium that was there with my mum, but it turned out she was actually the president of the church, and the medium that was supposed to come that evening had cancelled, so she had to step in. So as she started talking and saying things, I was hearing things before her. So she would be talking to someone and said, and you would understand the name Jonathan, but I was hearing Jonathan. And then she was saying Jonathan, so I'm going, right, what's going on? And then I would see a blue car and she was saying Jonathan passed away in a blue car. Where the blue car coming from? So I was already what is now known to me as in her link. Okay, which basically means if she's
Right.
communicating with spirit as a medium, if I'm working as a medium properly, I should be able to be aware of that same communication. So
Oh, wow.
at the end, she then says, and the young boy just at the back. So of course I turn and all I'm greeted with is a brick wall behind me. And she says, yeah, you're the only one there. There's no one else there. And I'm like, oh yeah, me. She says, your dad's here. And she gave me some pieces of information about my dad to validate who he was. And then she says, just whenever you're ready, she says, I'll help you understand what's been going on. And she must have seen my face. She says, I know you were hearing the things before I was saying it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she invited me to her development circle the following night, and I went because again, curiosity kills the cat. And I started to sit in the church in the development circle for 3 evenings a week for 2 years to develop and
Wow.
understand that I wasn't crazy. But we've all leave that to the jury, of course. But yeah, I had to go and understand what was going on.
No kidding. So, how would you describe then, just to bring it right back? And probably if anyone is listening to my podcast for a little while, they don't need the explanation, but just in case, how would you describe what it is a medium does? And I think this might be the first time that people have heard of a development circle. And so share that as well. And that concept of linking thoughts with the other medium that you did.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, a medium, a lot of people believe or under the illusion that a medium's job is to prove life after death. And for me, that's not necessarily the case. A medium cannot prove anything. The spirit world will prove their existence. For me, a medium's role is to give the spirit an opportunity to be heard. And whether that's expressing their thoughts, their feelings, to hear their voice, or to see them, the medium is a vessel of their communication, in a sense, giving them the voice and allowing them to relay their messages to their loved ones here on earth that are alive, to give them the reassurance that yes, they are still very much alive, still a part of your life, but most importantly, to help people heal through grief and through loss. So a medium's role, I guess, in a sense, is to be the telephone line between spirit and the physical here on earth. A development circle is a traditional word used, especially in spiritualism, especially in spiritualist churches, where mediums or trainee mediums will get to go and practice in a safe environment under a more experienced teacher or tutor that is already a medium. And it's just a place where like-minded people will come with someone who has more experience that can help them understand their abilities and to really help them understand how to control it, how to tap into it, and how to make use of it. Not everyone who has spiritual abilities choose to take them forward or to use their gifts. Some people just, keep them to themselves and they're happy with that. So development circle with a teacher really helps the person like myself, not really knowing what was going on and didn't really know how to understand grief either, to really come to terms with this new way of life, this extra sensitive way that I've become. And they will do different exercises. They will do different training opportunities with the other participants. And for me, my teacher at the time really put me through my paces in a sense. You know, she would blindfold me, she would bring people from the general
Wow.
public, she would bring cold cases of murders and things. She would bring victims of family, and she will just sit them in front of me and say, what do you get from them? What do you pick up about them? What do you do about this? And so she really, I don't want to say she could see that I was unique, because I would never like to make myself sound any superior than any others, but she gave me a lot of attention. And I think maybe she maybe just wanted to polish me up for potential, is what I would say. So those evenings, those free classes that I went to each week allowed me to build the relationship that I have now with the spirit world, to be the medium that I am, to
Right.
trust the spirit world, to build into what I do. So yeah, that's what a development circle really is. To
Oh,
link in now, this is an interesting word, link in, but the easiest way I can describe to you is the same way a medium communicates with the spirit world. If I don't know if they're still the same nowadays, but in a 2 or 3 story family home, if you have a telephone line that is connected to one telephone receiver, but
yeah.
also upstairs and maybe the bedroom, you will have another telephone receiver, but it still connects to the same telephone number. So if you're
For all us
upstairs,
old-fashioned people that still have a home phone.
yes, well, some people do, and I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
they'll come in relevant at some point, I'm sure.
I
So
know, I
if the
know. I'm
telephone
reluctant to give mine
rings,
up.
yeah, absolutely. If it rings and you answer upstairs and begin that conversation, if maybe your husband or your children are downstairs and they pick up the receiver, they're going to be able to listen to the same conversation. And that's the same as a medium. If there is a spirit present in the room communicating with a medium, if there's 10 mediums or 20 mediums or even another medium, if they are a proper medium, they should be able to be aware of that same spirit and that same context. So it's like
Right.
a telephone mom.
Oh, that's a great way to describe it. So I do feel you are unique, but I get the sense that, and you were probably born a medium, but I think as you know, people can learn. But I just wanted to read something that's in the foreword of your book, and it's by Nick Kyle, who's the former president of the Scottish Society for Psychical Research. Is that how you say that? Um,
Yep, it is.
and and he said, I have tested his ability, and he has consistently impressed me with his clairaudient mediumship. I have seen firsthand his generous, caring, and yet modest nature. And he is filled with a genuine desire to help and heal those suffering from grief. For all the obstacles life has thrown at him, he has consistently devoted himself to serving others. And he's also said, I've had my fair share of phenomenal experiences with spirit, but nothing comes to what Dominic Boag has given me. And despite his rousing successes as a medium, Dominic credits spirit for his gifts. However, I firmly believe that Dominic deserves your admiration too. Anyways, I think that that was really interesting the way that he's described you and in support of the fact that not only do you have these gifts, but you've developed them to such a level that they seem very accessible to you.
To say
So,
accessible, that really is true to a degree. I mean, I know it may sound silly, but this is a way of life for me.
yeah,
It's not something that I just turn on maybe once a month, going to do a church service or a demonstration, or maybe a once a month reading. I'm consistently working with spirit. Whether I'm doing private readings online, private readings in person, whether I'm on tour, doing live shows, teaching. And that's why I say I'm consistently connected in some way with the spirit world. I would dread to think if there was a gap, because I would be scared, like, are you still there? If months passed that I didn't have any opportunity for work, in a sense. And, I'm very blessed that way. This is my 20 years now of being a medium. So within those 20 years, I have consistently been blessed with an overload of work, which I feel blessed to be, in such a young place in my life. to have the reputation and the trust that the people have for my ability. I feel very humbled to have. But again, in reality, I'm nothing without them. I'm nothing without the spirit world, because who is Dominic, the medium, without the spirit? He's just
Right.
Dominic. Yeah, see, so for me, that's why I'm probably a little bit boring, but that's why I take my work and my connection to the spirit world so seriously, because I know the effects it can have. If it's done true and if it's done right, then mediumship can change someone's life. Mediumship can be the difference of helping a wife get up again tomorrow and brush her teeth and brush her hair and wash her face and look in the mirror knowing my husband may be gone, but in reality he's still with me, because the medium gave me so much evidence to know that. For a
Oh,
mother who loses her only child, to make that decision of, do I stay here or do I try and join him? For a
mm,
medium to be able to sit for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or even an hour and say, I understand you've lost your son, but his name was Jacob and he is still here with you. He talks about the time you went to Disney. He talks about you making his favorite ice cream cookies. So giving that mother so much evidence to go from believing that her son is still alive to knowing he is still alive. That's why it's so important to make sure that it's done properly, because it can just take one opportunity to help change someone's life.
oh, yeah, and I love that, and I can see how that would be so helpful and somebody could come away so uplifted. So I always like to think of this podcast really as like a coffee chat. And so we meander in and out of out of subjects, but I would love for you to share with me some of your favorite moments that you've had with spirit. And I know you talk about a number of these in the book, but just you saying that really reminded me of some of these really touching moments that you've had with people, and also just highlights that I don't know if my listeners will pick this up. Certainly if you're watching video you might, or you'll just hear it, but Dominic is a very old soul. You feel it, right? And the fact that you can have these conversations with people as well, and that you've experienced these traumatic events in your life, and not just one, and we'll go into the next one in a little bit, but when the life train hits is like what I like to call it.
Yeah.
It's really hard, but then it gives you this empathy and compassion for other people when they're going through things. And so I think that makes you an even better medium, of course, because you haven't, your life train has hit a few times.
Mhm.
Um, and so tell me some of those favorite moments that you've had.
I start telling all of those, I'll be giving away book number two. I'm
Oh,
joking. Yes, well,
oh,
if
I
I
can't
find time.
wait.
Yeah, but it's been incredible. I mean, like you said in the foreword with Nick, his background as a university lecturer and teacher, he I don't want to say set out to debunk, but coming from a parapsychologist point of view, he looks for more of the rational. He looks for why things are happening. So he had a really a wealth of knowledge in this type of area. He was extremely good friends with one of the world's best mediums, Albert Best. So he knew mediums inside out. He knew. But what Nick used to do with me, which was really interesting, is he would give me different tests as well. And there was a time where he had a lady write to him for help, and he felt I was more best to help her than himself. So he came to my office with a letter sealed, and well, two envelopes. One was sealed, and the other one was sellotaped multiple times. So both envelopes were sealed. He says, I'm not going to tell you the context of each envelope. He says, there may be things in the envelope, there may not be things in the envelope. He says, they may be together, they may connect together, or they may be irrelevant. He says, but just tell me what you get and see where we go. And this, I'm sure, is maybe in the book in some capacity. But I picked up one envelope and I says, in here is a photograph of X, Y, and Z. It says the letter the woman has written for the man inside this letter. I gave the information, gave the man's name in the letter, gave the details. Anyway, what I'm really getting at is when I had been put through my paces of being tested, they were right by my side. They were right there, like, not our first rodeo. What do you need? You see? And gave me the information. So I think maybe out of 100 statements that I made about the letter, I think I got like 92% of those statements dead on. You
Wow.
know, to dates, places, things that even people in the lady's family didn't know, that when they sat round the table and discussed it, no one knew that she went and had a miscarriage. But of course, I'm saying, there's a lot of pain of a miscarriage. Anyway, so for me, things like that were really impressive. But when it all comes down to it, I always say to my clients, I would rather be honest than impress you, because impressing you won't heal you. But I
Mm.
hope my honest and genuine work will help heal you. And that's the most important thing. Is mediumship a fact-finding mission? Is it a treasure hunt? No, it's not. It's giving a golden opportunity to communicate. And a few years when I first stepped out of my own church and started to go around the UK to demonstrate in different places, I needed to find myself. I needed to find myself as a medium. I find my confidence. And one night that really took me from 5% of confidence to like 55% confidence was I said to this young girl in the audience, I says, I believe I've got your father in the spirit world. And she says, yes, my father's in the spirit world. I gave her this information. I says, and do you understand where I've got D.W. Smith? And she says, I beg your pardon? I says, D.W. Smith. I says, it must be like a name or something. She says, my dad's name is David Wilson Smith. I says, oh, it must be your dad then. So then I began to give her the information. I says, I believe that you didn't get to say goodbye to your father because of the circumstances of his passing. I didn't want to go into it in too much great detail. She says, that's correct. I says, it's interesting. It says, he keeps telling me to say that you have brought him this evening in your bag, in your handbag. And she fell off her chair and she bent down, she reached in her handbag and she pulled out his sweater and she
Oh.
held it up and she says, I brought his sweater tonight because I really needed to know that he's still with me. She says, I cannot cope without my best friend, my father, but I cannot deal with the anger that I have because he was taken from us. So for me, moments like that are really, they're really joyous. One time as well, it's the silly things, that really make me go, that's incredible. I was doing a huge event in America, and I was aware of a young boy who was speaking Spanish to me. So I began to shift how I'm working. Said, I don't understand much of your Spanish, so give it to me in other ways. So I began to get more his thoughts, his feelings, and images. So I was able to give so much information. He says, he keeps telling me to tell my father 4 minutes. 4 minutes. It's a strange thing to say. Says, so I've got this young man, he's here to speak to his mum, his dad, and his sister who are in the audience. I says he needs to say to his dad, it was only 4 minutes. It's okay, only 4 minutes. It turned out that the dad was 4 minutes late
Oh.
from being able to get to his son and save him. 4 minutes. So as I connect with the dad in the audience, I'm connecting with the son, we're engaging, we're exchanging things. He says he doesn't care about the 4 minutes. He says to me, he had 24 years of your love. He says that was worth more than 4 minutes. I then started to talk to the sister, gave the sister pieces of information. And then he says, now we need to say to my mum. So I said, okay, mum. So the microphone's getting passed along, the dad, the sister, back to the mum.
Wow.
I says, okay, what do you want to say to your mum? And no word of a lie, because they're crying. I was crying as well.
I'm almost
And I've
crying too.
listen, wait till you hear. And I have always said to the spirit world, I will never decide what you get to say and what you don't get to say, but I will always handle it with integrity. So the last thing that I said to him, what do you want to say to your mum? And he says, tell her they do not fit her, get them off. I says, what do you mean by that? And I says, you need to tell me more. And all of a sudden I kept feeling my own sneakers getting tapped and pulled. I says, that's a bit bizarre. I says, Mum, your son's telling me to say to you that, oh, he just keeps saying they're too big, get them off. Says, and I don't know why. He says, but is there anything to do with you trying to fit into his sneakers? And she
Mm.
wailed, and she sobbed. And she bent down and she took off the sneakers and she held them up in the audience. And she says, since he's passed, I've been wearing his. That family drove 4.5 hours to come to the event, not knowing whether their son, their brother, was still alive. Was he there? Was he not? Was he completely gone? His medium was real. Could he even speak English? They knew nothing. But together they had a grief that was worth the risk of taking that drive. And these are just moments that just make me look back and say, what if we were not there? What if we did not have that moment together? Would that daughter or would that husband, would that mum have received those communications? Would it have been done the way that it was needed to be? So there's so many beautiful moments that I can really share. And all I can say is sometimes I'm more of the bubbling mess rather than the people receiving sometimes, because it really does move me as well with some of the experience that I've shared or what I've went through as well. You see, one of the last messages that I will share with you um, still really hits home. But I done a reading for a mum who she came to see me. I won't say where, but she came to see me in the States. And I says, okay, I've got your son here, and gave her the information. This was in a private one-to-one. I kept saying to her, I says, I don't know why, but your son keeps telling me to say he's at one with the water. And I says, I don't know why. He says, I just feel very peaceful. He says, I feel very content, very happy, very light. He says, but he keeps telling me he's at one with the water. Anyway, out of a whole 60-minute reading, I may have said to the mum maybe about 6 or 7 times, like, he's at one with the water, he's at one with the water. But as the reading unfolded, I was aware that he was starting to do breath work, and he was learning to focus on meditation and, certain things like this. And unfolded that he was in the swimming pool, and he was learning or trying to meditate underwater, and he lost consciousness and he drowned in the swimming pool. Hence why he is at one with the water.
Oh,
And it really sticks with me, because no parent wants to come home and find their child passed away in the family swimming pool. So yeah, there's the good, but there's also the bad, and there's the ugly, and that unfortunately is part and parcel of what I do. Not every passing, unfortunately, is very peaceful, and in a hospice or a hospital surrounded by
yeah.
family, or unfortunately we get some extreme things as well. And that's why I always say it needs to be done with integrity, but also with honesty as well. So I think that's a whole other podcast that we could unfold, of so many of Dominic's different stories and
Right? Oh,
experiences that he's had.
yeah.
But there's so many. There's so many. And
Thank you
you
for
you brought me to a good place of thinking of some of those there. So thank you.
well, thank you for sharing. And that must not be easy as a medium to hear all of those stories. So how do you not take those home with you? How do you protect your, I guess, your inner peace? Because listening to all those stories can be really, I can imagine that can sit really heavily. So how are
It
you
really
able
does.
to still show up as your lighthearted self with all these
I really don't
stories?
know that answer. I really don't know how I do it. It really, it really is, and as much as I love what I do, I'm very honest in saying it's very depressing. It's very depressing, and it's very lonely what I do.
Mm,
But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it, because I've said to the spirit world numerous times when I first started developing, come as close to me as you possibly can, so that your loved ones can see you shine again. And
right.
whether that's them sharing their most darkest moment with me, making me feel every last beat of their heart, whatever it may be, if I need to experience it for their loved ones to get through the darkness and to see the light at the end of the tunnel, Absolutely, I'll do that. I will do that. And I've went into this place without being arrogant. I went into this place of knowing that there's life after death. I don't believe in life after death. I know there's life after death. So what I experience and what I see others experience into their transition, whether it's passing with cancer, whether it's a car wreck, whether it's a murder, whatever the circumstances may be, I know that that is not how they will be defined as a life that they lived. So
Right.
for me, I know that once I can deal with that's what's happened,
Right.
but this is the life they lived.
Right.
And the way that I do my mediumship, if the spirit do want to address their passing in a private reading, I always say to them, well, we will address it from the get-go. We will deal with that from the very beginning so that the rest of the reading can be filled with more healing messages and memories of the life you lived. So it's almost like replacing that dark moment from the get-go and then filling it with more positive and more special memories.
Well, and
So
that's
that then
helpful.
leaves the client with more happiness. You
Yeah, and
see?
that's helpful for you as well.
And that's what keeps me going. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what keeps me going. Thankfully, I've got good people around me. I've got good people around me. And yeah, I just try to live a normal life as well. If work gets hard and heavy, I'll take maybe a 20, 30-minute moment to myself after maybe a hard reading and just thank the spirit and thank the people who have worked with me in the spirit world and then just say, let's take that away now. Let's let that go. Let's let that go. But do you know what really does just sign the deal for me is seeing someone come into your room that doesn't know how to smile, doesn't have that twinkle in their eye, and can barely hold a sentence in conversation with you. To then see by the end of the reading, see them gently start to smile, see that twinkle come back in their eye and really feel them hugging you and engaging in you and their last words to you being thank you keeps me going.
Oh,
That's what gives me the power and the steam in my train to wake
I
up
love
another day and
that.
do it all over again.
The
Because
steam
there's
in
no
your
other reward.
train.
Yeah, there's no
I
other
love that.
reward. There really isn't. There's no other reward that can be so fulfilling when you have an experience like that.
Right. And maybe we can talk about how your mediumship has changed because you had a rather tough experience in your late teens and it completely changed your mediumship. It's almost like
Completely.
it gifted you with a deeper spiritual connection almost.
It really did. When I first started developing, I was very clairvoyant. And for those listeners who maybe don't know all the boring terms, but clairvoyant basically means to see spirit clearly. So, like seeing spirit, you would see me maybe on the screen if you're watching, or like Shannon sees me now. So, to see the physicality or to see the spirit. So, when I would stand or do private readings, I would see the spirit person standing beside the people in the audience. I could see what they were wearing, tattoos, any distinctive features. So I thought, well, this is good. This is wonderful. I can see the dead. I can see what they're all about. So there was a part of me, bear in mind being a young teenager, I was a little bit cocky. I was like, boom, boom. And this man had one leg, and your brother's name was Robert because he had Rob tattooed on his knuckles. So I could see things. But as time went on, I started to think of my own life. And for me, I always had a dream to become a police officer. So as time went on, I was going to then, I wouldn't say abandon my mediumship, but it was never going to be my career. It was just something that got my interest. So it was to soon be placed on the back burner. And I had to start earning money. So I started working in a customer call center for customer service. And that was fine. But I just needed to earn money because I wanted to learn to drive so that I could get my driver's license to then go to the police academy. But shortly after my 18th birthday, my vision started to change. And I had no understanding why. I didn't know what was going on, just thought maybe I needed glasses because my mom and my sister, my grandparents, they wear glasses. So I thought maybe it's just I need glasses for reading or seeing. Um, Long story short, I was then diagnosed with a very rare hereditary condition called Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, which basically means that the optic nerves that connect to your eyes, that then connect to your brain, they start to self-destruct. They start to kill themselves, which then prevents your vision sending the images to your brain. So I went into, I guess you could say, a big depression. I went very sad because I was told that I was going to go blind. I was going to lose my vision. And it was almost like my whole world was just being shattered right in front of me. You know, I was 18 here in the UK. You
Mm.
could start going clubbing, you can buy alcohol. Like I was just starting to live, you know. And I really sulked. I locked myself away. You know, I didn't eat. I didn't want to go see friends or family. I just sulked. And I always remember, because like I said, I still went to church the 3 evenings a week. But I always remember I was like, I'm not going, I give up. And, you know, why would this happen to me? Me, me, me. That's what it was. Why me? You know? And we've all
Well,
been there at some point, I'm sure. You know?
oh, but
Why
it's
me?
very understandable for
Yeah,
anybody,
yeah,
but especially a 18-year-old who's just getting his freedom and
yeah, yeah. So as I was sulking and licking my wounds, I always remember this voice coming into my room. And I don't know who it was. I couldn't tell you where it came from. But all I remember was, young man, when you stop feeling sorry for yourself and when you stop sulking, we will be here for you. Greater things are to come. But for now, we will sit silently and wait. Blimmin' hell was this? What on earth was that? So I eventually, you know, picked myself up, dusted myself off, and started trying to piece my life back together. And I went back to church. I went back to doing the things that I was doing. And every time I then started to stand up and connect with spirit, I no longer could see them. I no longer could really see out to the audience. It was all a blur, and it made me feel so insecure, going from someone who could point to someone at the back of the room and say, I've got your dad here, his name's Peter, to standing and not seeing at all. And I says to the spirit world, if we are going to continue to work together, I need your voice. I need your voice. And that's when I went from developing my clairvoyance to then my clairaudience, which basically means to hear spirit, to hear their voice, then started to really kick in. And it didn't start off very strong. Maybe certain words being gentle or whispered, and it got louder and louder. So things changed, but I had to learn to develop. There is a true saying, in a sense, when you lose one sense, your others in heighten, and I truly believe that. And that's when I was able to then become more aware of Spirit's voice. And how I now work is when I become aware of Spirit. Hi, my name's Dominic. Who are you? What can I do for you? Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a dad. Password cat. So then I start to hear Spirit's voice, and then I just deliver what I'm then hearing from them. So yeah, that was tough going. That was tough going. But you know what? It made me stronger. It made me better at what I do. And it also made me realize how special it truly is as well. So if I have to take that hit or that sacrifice of changing my dreams and learning to live life in a different way and navigate a disability, then so be it, because greater things came. Greater things came.
yeah. So does that mean that the messages that you got then became even clearer?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. A lot clearer.
so
A
you
lot
got
clearer.
you that's a rather tough way to get a superpower, but it was like you got you just got an
Absolutely.
extra dose of superpower.
Absolutely. I got an upgrade. That's
You
what
got
I
an
would say.
you got an upgrade.
But
What a
again,
beautiful way to look at it.
we can either take a negative and turn it into a positive, or just allow a negative to destroy our life. That's point it. One of the greatest things that I learned was hitting ground bottom or rock bottom isn't necessarily such a bad thing. And you know why? Because you can only go up. You cannot go any lower. So once you hit rock bottom, you can only go up. It's your choice of when you say enough is enough. I'm going to get up. I'm going to get better. I'm going to dust myself up. I can do this. So when you hit rock bottom, you can't go any lower. So just trust that you will find your way. At the clairaudience, that really just changed things to, even hearing different accents or nationalities or things, being able to sometimes use words that were foreign to me. In the book, there's the chapter that tells you about the time I was giving a lady in a church a contact from her mum, and then her mum started speaking to me in Italian. I don't know any words of Italian apart from Vino. I don't know nothing about Italian, but her mum changed with how she was communicating with me. And I says to the lady, "Do you understand what sounds like blah, 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 blah?" And she went, "Oh." I says, "What does that mean?" She says, "That's my mum's address of the house that she lived in Italy."
Oh, wow.
So it really shifted. And trust me when I say this, it doesn't always happen like that. But when it's good, it's good. Um, but the more it's more detailed, the enunciation and the pronunciation of hearing words, you when you're a medium, sometimes you're using your claircognizance, just your mind. So you're in a sense interpreting or trying to piece it together with your feelings. When you hear something, you cannot necessarily mistaken it because you're hearing it. You see, so if you are truly working clairaudiently, then that voice should be very precise and specific with some of the things that you're hearing and delivering.
So how would somebody say these gifts are opening up for someone? How would they be able to tell that it's actually spirit and they're not crazy?
Well, there's a fine line. There's a fine line between imagination and communication. And I say this all the time, but you will never know until you're able to put it to practice. So if you're developing
Right.
or things going on in your own, you may be getting thoughts or you may be getting words or feelings. But if you're on your own, then you have to say, well, where are they coming from? But
Right.
for me, going to a spiritualist church and being able to practice on people, I may be thinking, Jonathan, blue car. But if I'm not having someone to express it to on a one-to-one practice environment for them to say, my brother's Jonathan, he passed away in a blue car, then I know it's coming from a source. But if you don't have an opportunity to practice or to have someone tell you or show you the way, you'll never know. You will never, ever truly know. As time goes on, you will start to familiarize yourself. Like I know what I call a calling card. So I know the moment that I've set my intention and that I am ready to work. So if I am becoming aware of spirit, I get the most craziest shiver. And basically, from my right shoulder to my right ear, it goes like this. And when that happens to me, I know I've went from Dominic to Dominic, the medium. So I had to learn that. I had to go through different years of doing things with spirit to realize every time I'm working with spirit, that happens, then I know. You see? So you have to not just find yourself, you have to find you and the spirit. You see?
Right.
And that's why when I teach, I always say to students, you must build a relationship with the unseen. You cannot just expect it to come from you. You have to build a relationship. It's like a marriage. You've got to build a relationship with each other to figure out what makes each other tick and what's good and what's bad and what works and what doesn't work so that we can be strong.
So can anyone like so people get tingles once in a while, they're
Yep.
interested. Can anyone come and take one of your beginner classes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, listen, I'm not saying that I'm going to help anyone become a groundbreaking medium, but if mediumship is in your soul, if it's in your destiny, then it's just a matter of it being ignited. Once you've awoken and you've ignited the possibility, someone like me as a teacher can give you the tinder or gasoline to really, turn your ignition into a bonfire, if you want to say.
Right.
So absolutely, if there's any gifts, if you want to say, or any talents or abilities, which we all have, just some stronger than others. And some may be more intuitive or psychic rather than mediumistic, you see. But all I can say is if you come into I can't speak for everyone, but if you come into a class with me, I will nourish you. I will help you. I will look and say, let's try this. This worked for me. Go try this. I will help you understand you. I won't help you understand me. I'll help you
Right.
understand you. And what you then do with it, whether you choose to practice and strengthen, then that's up to you. But you know what? I always make it fun. And that's the most important thing. And even if you come and it all goes terribly wrong, we'll just laugh. We will have
Right.
a laugh. But
Right.
maybe you've been there to realize this isn't for me, but healing is more for me. Or this isn't for me. I would prefer just reading tarot cards. That's okay. Or at
Well,
least you have an exploration.
I find that your sense of humor definitely comes out in the book. I mean, I did laugh out loud when you were talking about teaching, like Mary Kondo.
Hmm.
You're going to Marie Kondo your spirituality. I can't remember where that is, but geez, that was funny. Um,
We've
in
got to laugh.
Yeah, describing your teaching. And the other thing that really made me laugh is you said at one point, this is not some evangelical bat signal to abandon your religion and find your closest spiritualist
No.
church.
Yeah.
Oh, that made me laugh, as well as you've got some references to Harry Potter. But um, I love
Magic love.
how
Oh.
you address that you can still believe in God and still believe in speaking with your loved ones on the other side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, why not? One of like, if
Yeah.
we take it all away, if we take away God or Jesus or Buddha, Allah, if we take that all away, what are we left with? We're left with a belief or we're left with a faith. If we take that all away, we're left with love. And that's the most important thing. Why would you go to church to preach for God? Well, you must have a love for your God. Why would you go to your synagogue to preach for your Buddha or your Allah? You must have a love. You see? So you must have a feel or you must have a faith. Why would you communicate with your loved ones? Because you have a love. You have a love that maybe you didn't get to finish, or maybe you didn't get to say goodbye. Maybe you are going through that grief. They are the same way. They come to communicate because they still have a love. And I'm a true believer that love always finds a way and love always wins. So if we take it all away, if we strip it all back, if we strip away the church buildings, the synagogues, if we take away the Buddhas and the Allahs, the Quran and the Bible, all we actually do is we come back to one thing, and that's a place of love. And that's the most important thing. So whatever your faith may be, whatever your religious background may be, love always finds a way, and that's what keeps the community or the communication going. That's what keeps the power of the unseen world or the afterlife still very much present in the present life is love. So,
Oh,
my religion is love.
and I love it. I love that.
Yeah. It's like a lot of people are under the illusion that I'm a spiritualist. I'm not a spiritualist. I'm a spiritual person, but I don't condone myself or conduct myself in a faculty of one thing. I look at some mandalas of Buddhism. I look at mandalas of the Catholic faith. I take different parts of life to just try to make me the best version of who I am. I don't just put myself under one title just because I'm a medium and talk to dead people. Doesn't mean I'm a spiritualist. I came from a spiritualist church and a spiritualist background, but Dominic grew and Dominic developed himself and his thoughts came different and he looked at other ways of life and other practices. And I'm just me. I'm just me. And I'm okay with being just boring, silly old me.
And aren't we lucky to have you being just you on our podcast? So, to wrap things up, are there any words of wisdom you would like to share with our guests or anything that we haven't shared yet? And I know that you're starting a tour here in North America soon, so we'll wrap up with that. But is there anything else?
I'm a true believer, especially when it comes to life and the world that we live in now. We live in a world where anything is possible. So don't restrict yourself and don't allow others or faith or belief or religion or don't allow anyone to darken your light. Surround yourself with the right people, the right tool, the right podcasts, books, knowledge, experiences that only enrich you, that only turn your little candle flame into a roaring bonfire. I am a true believer that it's our job to try to bring a little bit more of the rainbow into the world whilst we're going through storms. It is your job, whatever capacity, being a nurse, a cook, a bus driver, a wife, a widow, whatever, bring a little bit of your light into the world, because if we all shine together, then it's going to get brighter. That's for sure. If you can live in a world where it's possible to be anything, at least try to be kind. That's my greatest words of wisdom.
Oh, well, that's perfect. I love it. And I love that the rainbow reference. I had someone recently tell me, or they were teaching a class and they said, "You are the rainbow."
Mm. I love it. I'm after every storm comes a rainbow. It's a bit of a matter of fact. So, I'd like to be a bit of a rainbow if it's coming after a storm because it's going to bring a little bit of joy
Yeah.
and happiness.
Well, absolutely. And so you are coming in person to North America, and I'm here in Vancouver, and you will
Yes.
be teaching a few different classes as well as doing some demonstrations. And so that will be happening in North Vancouver in May. I'll put all the details in the show notes. And then you're also spending quite a bit of time in the States. Whereabouts will you be, do you think?
Yeah, so I'll be coming to Massachusetts. I have an event that I teach annually as a retreat called Together with Spirit. So that's with myself, spirit artist and medium Josephine Mackenzie, and trance and physical medium Scott Milligan. So we as a team do seminars, sometimes over 7 days, sometimes over 3 or 4 days. So we'll be teaching that. And then I've got, teaching classes around Massachusetts area, around the East Coast as well. So I'm here, there, and everywhere. And then hopefully I'll be flying back out later this year as well. So yeah, just keep watching, keep posting. Check out the website, dominicboag.com. There is only one me, so
And
BOAG. And yes, like you said, I'll be coming with the Spiritualist Alliance in Vancouver as well. So yeah, lots of adventure, and I look forward to meeting everyone.
well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Miles to Zen
No, my
podcast.
pleasure.
I truly appreciate it. This was so fun talking to you, and I could speak with
Been a
you all
blast.
day, but I know that you
No,
are
you'd
a
get bored.
busy guy.
You would.
Yeah, absolutely not. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
If you have listened all the way to this point in this podcast, first off, thank you so much. Wasn't that a wonderful discussion? And secondly, if you are near Vancouver or you can get to Vancouver, Dominic will be in North Vancouver between May 11th and May 17th of 2026 this year and has a demonstration of mediumship on the 13th, a beginner's course on the 14th, an advanced course on the 15th and 16th, and another demonstration on the 17th. So if you listen this far, perhaps it's a sign that you're actually quite interested in this stuff. And so check out the spiritualalliance.ca to get more information about his visit. And I'll put in all Dominic's contact details in the description of the podcast. Thank you for joining me on the Miles to Zen podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, follow, share, or leave a comment so we can keep growing this community together. This podcast was created and produced by Shannon Miles Halliday with original music by Anna Vovziniak.